Let's talk some business. I'm keen to understand how this very strange world that we live in now has been treating you and treating HubSpot. I've really, I guess I wanted to just try and dig into some of those challenges that you've been facing, that we've all been facing. How's it been for you? How has COVID impacted your life, and how have you been managing to deal with it?
It's been challenging for sure. Interesting and challenging. For me personally, like my personal self, take HubSpot and the HubSpot tribe aside, it hasn't been a huge issue for me like so many other people where their lives have been turned upside down. Like I'm an introvert. I'm an indoorsy introvert, so it doesn't really bother me too much to stay inside and wear a mask. I think what's maybe more interesting is HubSpot. It's sort of like we've got three crises happening at the same time. We've got a health crisis that's happening big time. We've got an economic crisis that's happening big time. We've got kind of a crisis of conscience that's happening at the same time. And the thing that's interesting about these crises is they don't not only impact all of us personally, but boy, do they impact our businesses. And as the CEO myself, and as the CEO yourself, it's really impacted our employees, our partners, and our customers. And we've had to do a lot of things to adjust and to try to find our new normal in these strange times.
You travel normally quite a bit.
Yep.
How have you been coping with not traveling?
I don't miss that one bit. I travel a lot. I go to Dublin a fair amount. I go to London once in a while. I go to San Francisco a ton. I do not miss flying around and don't miss hotels, don't miss airplanes. I find that I'm on Zoom all day and I'm on Slack all day, and it doesn't bother me. I don't get Zoom fatigue. I don't feel like I've missed much personally in terms of my engagement with our partners and our customers and our employees. I miss sort of bumping into people in the hallway at HubSpot, but I'm more efficient in a lot of ways. I don't commute anymore. There's no time between meetings. I have more time on my calendar to do more stuff because I'm not flying all over the place. So in some ways, I kind of look at HubSpot and some of our employees have become much more efficient. I think I've been much more efficient. Other employees have become much less. Like, let's say you're a single mom with 3 kids at home that you've got to homeschool essentially. You're really not efficient at all at this point, even if you found your new normal. So I'm on sort of the plus side of that personally.
Do you have any tips for dealing with that kind of work to not work balance? I didn't want to say work life. It's really around the fact that we're all working from home, and the delineation therefore between going to work and coming back again. It's quite tough. It's very easy to just continue to work, I think.
I think it is too. I get tired at the end of the day. I'll be on 17 Zooms today. Yeah. And so if I had 17 meetings live or on Zoom, I'd be tired. So by 6:30, I'm knackered. I'm ready for a cold beer and put my feet up and have some dinner. And, I'm a little tired. So I'm okay with shutting it down a little bit. I would also say that HubSpot and I were moving towards a remote world before all this. Remote was our third biggest office and was a big initiative for us coming into this year. And so I was working from home a couple days a week. My co-founder Dharmesh was working from home probably 4 days a week. So we're starting to get into that flow. I'd say the one simple hack we had done prior to COVID that helped us get ready for it was I had hired some folks on my direct team that weren't based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so what I had noticed is when I was in a meeting with my team, and let's say there were 6 of us live and 1 on Zoom, that person on Zoom had a hard time getting into the darn meeting and the flow of the discussion. Yeah. So I started playing a best practice, I think, of if anyone is remote, we're all going to be remote. So I just started saying, hey, if anyone's remote in this meeting, I'm going to stay at my desk and I'm going to Zoom into the meeting. And so we were starting to get ready, and we were heading in that direction. We've obviously had to go a lot faster.
Apart from HubSpot, what other tech do you use day to day to help you? Zoom, by the sound of it.
Yeah, I almost never use the telephone. Like, can't remember the last time I had a ye old phone call. I've completely replaced it with Zoom. Somebody asked me a question on Twitter the other day. They say, how long do you wait around if someone's late for Zoom? I'd ask you that question, Bob. So if you're having a Zoom, how long will you wait around for them?
Well, yes, tricky. That's a real tricky question. A few minutes.
My thing is I wait a long time because when I'm on Zoom, I can do all kinds of other stuff. Whereas I'm on the phone, I don't want to wait. It's like, so I'm kind of off the phone on Zoom. I'm pretty off email on Slack. I've sort of embraced Slack as a way to communicate with the team.
Oh, you have?
That's been helpful. The other thing that's happened that's changed for me is I joined a CEO group. And so there's about 15 tech CEOs in this group with great companies like Zoom and Slack and terrific companies, Box, you name it. And they're all public companies, SaaS companies, between 5 billion market cap and 100, sort of that next tier down from the giants. And we talk once a week, every Thursday night for an hour. And it's a little bit of couch time, little misery loves company, but it's also like best practices sharing, like, how are you dealing with COVID? How are you dealing with the health of your employees? How are you dealing with your partners? How are you dealing with your customers? How are you dealing with Black Lives Matter? All this stuff bubbles up. And, when you go to business school, there's no playbook for, W-shaped economic recoveries. There's no playbook in business school for woke leadership. There's no playbook for this stuff. So, we're kind of making it up as we go along and trying to create best practices amongst each other. That's been very, very helpful for me. Here's the other thing I would say about these times. For me personally, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I kind of have a dial, and I have a peacetime dial and a wartime dial. My peacetime dial, relatively bottoms up. I let decisions sort of percolate. I let decisions sort of foment, and decisions take a long time. And I'm relatively transparent. In wartime, decisions that would have taken months, we make in hours, very quickly. And I'll make the decision. I'll just decide. And I'm much more transparent. And so I'm on our wiki all the time. I'm on Slack all the time. I'm on Zoom all the time, talking to our employees, trying to talk to our customers and partners way, way more and explaining what's on our mind. Even if it's bad news, I think they'd rather hear it from me and not get spun on it or not guess on it. And so I moved when COVID started to wartime. I'm starting to, it's the wartime. We've sort of dialed in right now. Crazy things may happen between now and the election here in the United States. So wartime may kick in, but we've got it sort of running in a reasonably good way at this point. So I'm ready to kind of dial it back to more peacetime.
Okay. What long-lasting effects do you think this is going to have on our business, on the way that HubSpot deals with its customers?
So I have a diet where I eat a fair amount of meat, and I've been trying to lose I gained a few pounds during COVID.
Yep.
And I'm trying to move down the kind of food chain from, I think it was a lot of meat but some vegetables on the plate, to a lot of vegetables on the plate with a little bit of meat, to, all non-meat, and sort of slide down that food chain. I think you're seeing, you got companies who, all of their interactions with their prospects and customers are kind of hand-to-hand combat. They're like human to human. If you want to talk to the company, you have to talk to a human effectively. And then you kind of slide one step down, and it's, it's mostly human to human, but computers make them much more efficient. And then you slide down one step forward. Oh, actually, most of the interaction with your prospects and customers are actually with computers, and humans make those computers more efficient. And you slide all the way down in your Google, and you really can't talk to a human at Google. I think what's happening is people are sliding down that food chain. And I think everyone's been planning on doing this from my perspective for a long time. And we've been talking about inbound and flywheel and all this stuff for a long time. We're basically digitizing your go-to-market. And I think most companies were planning to make this shift. And this was just a massive, compelling event where they were forced to make this shift. They had to slide down the food chain because their prospects weren't coming into the office. You couldn't have a meeting with them. You had to move from outbound marketing to inbound marketing, from outside sales to inside sales, from offline marketing to online marketing. I just think it moved, the stuff that would have happened over the next 3-4 years up to the last 6 months. And I think it's kind of here to stay. The advice I would give to people, I talk to lots of customers. To some customers, it feels like right here in 2020, they're just kind of biding their time to get back to a go-to-market that looked like 2019.
Yeah.
I think the right mindset is actually 2022 will probably look more like 2020, in that they should try to lean more into the future, lean into managing through Slack and lean into managing through Zoom, and then lean into a heavily digitized go-to-market that's heavily automated, that's heavily self-service, that's heavily internet-based. I think humans are changing their behavior, and companies need to shift and kind of permanently shift to adjust to that. I don't think we should be pining for our go-to-market that was in 2019. I think we should lean into these changes.
Okay, and just to dig into that a little, companies are changing their behaviors. They're being forced to accelerate that change. We're seeing digital transformation becomes much more of an inevitability, and those that were laggards have been propelled into it by this malaise, this change that's affected us. How do you see us? Is there a gentle way out of the other end? Or is there suddenly a bang and the new normal becomes a version of what we have today, mixed in with more Zoom, more online interaction?
I think when we're sitting in 22 looking back at, I think when we're sitting in 2030 and looking back at 2020, it'll be interesting, like the slope of the change that had been going on from, let's say, 2006 when we first started HubSpot and looking at this kind of stuff to 2019, just steady. People were getting good at inbound and good at online marketing and online selling and all that stuff. And then, wow, there's a step function change. Yeah, it probably comes down a little bit, but I don't think it goes back to where 2019 was. And I think people who are doing sort of old school outside sales, it's a very inefficient way to sell. It doesn't match the way people want to buy. Yeah, you should move to inside selling. People who were doing everything was full service, and full service sounds like a good thing, but actually humans, they want self-service. They want it whenever they can get it. They want to be able to go to your darn website and get the answer, go into a discussion forum on your website, get the darn answer. They don't have to want to book an appointment with your sales rep to walk through a pricing proposal. They want to go to your website and figure your darn pricing out. They want to be able to chat on your site. They don't want to have to engage with a human. I think all of these things, like human behavior, has really, really been changing. And I think companies need to, they needed to adjust 3 or 4 years ago. This is just forcing it. And I'm seeing a lot of companies behave really well. Like companies who are super laggards, like, whoa, way behind. And we're just like, not barely thinking about this stuff. Wow, have taken aggressive action and really leaned in. You've probably seen the same thing. I've been impressed with the ability of companies to change in 2020.
Yeah, many, it was forced upon them in a kind of change or die way, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It seems to have, I don't know, I don't want to push you into the world of your finance too much, but it seems to me from your recent announcements that you've done pretty well through the last quarter, the last half year. Can you comment around that?
It's a strange thing because so many people have done so poorly and so many lives have been turned upside down. And well, initially when it happened, Bob, between March and May, it was a massive headwind to our business. Like cancellations were up. Downgrades were up, new sales had really dried up. And then starting around June, it started to turn. It's hard for me to talk about what's happening at the moment, but yeah, we started to see the winds really shift, like a 180 shift, and started to get a tailwind from COVID over the last, or between June and July is what we told investors. It started to really shift. It kind of makes sense. for all the reasons we just talked about, people need to get to completely digitize their online marketing and selling. They need to digitize that stuff. And HubSpot's been, we built a platform for that. In fact, when all this first started, we got together with our engineering team. We're like, all right, this is all happening. What changes do we need to make to our product to help our customers sort of deal with this? We kind of went through the roadmap, and it's like, we kind of built the perfect platform for this type of a thing. And so we didn't change, we changed some packaging stuff to make it easier on our customers and our prospect to, survive through this thing, but we didn't change our roadmap or our product line. Like, it's sort of ideally suited, for better or worse, it's ideally suited to these times.
So I just got a reminder flashed up, which I need to say to our watching audience. We'd love to have some questions. If you're keen to put anything forward to Brian, please use the chat pane and pop some questions in there, and they will magically appear up here in front of me on my screen. Just maybe take a little leap across and talk for a moment about upcoming events. We're pretty close to we should have had Inbound already. We're pretty close to the virtual event coming up on the 22nd, 23rd. Can you tell, rather than digging and diving and pushing you into the product, tell us about the event? What can we expect? Have you missed the build-up that you normally have for your on-stage antics?
Not at all. Not at all. I dread my presentation every year. It's a tremendous amount of work to prepare for it. And I just take the pressure on for that presentation in front of all those people. And I get people say they don't notice this, but I am very, very anxious up there. I do not enjoy the 45 minutes I'm on stage. I feel like it's a very unnatural act for a human being to stand in front of that many people and start talking. So I'm delighted we're doing it virtually. And there's a bunch of benefits to doing it virtually. One is we can record Dharmesh and I's presentation, and we can do, take one, action, and then take 74, action. And so, it takes a little longer, but it's a lot easier on the two of us. And we did something pretty creative, I think, for our keynote, Dharmesh and I, and we brought our product lead into it. I think people will, I think people are really going to like it. We have a really original way of doing our keynote this year that's unique and fun, and I hope people like it. The other kind of benefit to the conference is people can come in from all over the world. Like, it's pretty hard and expensive for someone to fly all the way from Singapore to Cambridge. It's a big endeavor. Now we've got programming that's going to be sort of kind of around the clock. We've got some programming built in for Asia, for example, and Europe. So we got the time zones better matched. And so people kind of from all over the world can come. It'll be more of a global event. That's a big benefit. Same thing for the speakers. A lot of times it's like hard to get a speaker. Like, we were trying to get Bob Iger, the chairman of Disney, who's a really sharp guy. I read his book, really liked his book. And he had kind of hemming and hawing. He wasn't sure he wanted to do it. But now it's virtually. It's like, hey, I can sit in my house in Malibu and do the thing. So we got him to speak. It's a lot easier of an ask. The thing that I think we'll see, but I think the team's done an excellent job of recreating the content. And I think they'll do an excellent job in recreating the community around Inbound. Like, one of the things we always hear that people like about Inbound is they connect with like-minded people, like really thoughtful SEO people connect with really thoughtful SEO people, really thoughtful people about Instagram and B2B connect. It's like these communities of people, really thoughtful revenue operations people are connecting together. We built an app for Inbound that is really cool and invested a fair amount in it. And I think we're going to be able to recreate some of that magic online. Now, we'll see if it comes true, but we've really leaned into, we didn't try to just cut and paste Inbound offline and just film it for online. We rethought it and reimagined it for an online world. I think it's going to be awesome. We'll see. The measurement for us of whether it's awesome is we ask all the attendees to fill out a net promoter survey at the end, and we
Yeah.
measure year to year. And so I'm very, very curious to see how we do. I think it's going to be really good though.
Talking of excitement, we just had there was one question that just popped up from somebody called Aidan O'Leary.
Oh,
I
yes.
recognize that name. It
Oh,
said, will there be virtual dad dancing?
There will not be
An
virtual
important
dad
question.
dancing.
Thank you, Aidan.
There may be some dad jokes. Dharmesh has a couple dad jokes up his sleeve, but no dad dancing.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So I can't let you off the hook. I have to push you a little with regard to new product. And, you know, it's only you and I and a few other friends, and they won't tell anyone. So it's easy for you to just give us a little spoiler of what you're coming up with.
Sure.
Announcement-wise.
Well, let me give you just a thought about how we think about our product. So, you know, when we first met 150 years ago, HubSpot was really, you know, we had some SEO tools and blogging tools and some crappy social media tools. And we've come a really long way since then. Full marketing hub, we got a full sales hub, you know, it's full service hub, full content management hub. I think, well, there's a great, Steve Jobs has a great keynote at Stanford University. And in his keynote, he talks about connecting the dots, and that you can't connect the dots going forward, but you can connect them going back. And that some people will connect the dots in a different order than others and imagine a future that others hadn't thought about. So the current method of connecting the dots in CRM software is tried and true. Oracle started it, Salesforce, Adobe. There's a classic playbook of you buy a bunch of applications, you kind of glue them all together and build kind of it's hard, it's clunky, big enterprise system. It's powerful, but clunky. And then you have a huge sales force that sells it. We've been running a different playbook for the last couple of years, and I think it's starting to really pay off, where we built the whole thing ourselves. Instead of cobbling together all these applications, we handcrafted them with love from the bottom up. And I think we're starting to really get a nice return on that. Whereas if you use HubSpot, all of the applications work together perfectly. They're not integrated. They're the same darn application. There's a single database behind the scenes. It's not syncing all this weird stuff behind the scenes. Our developers spend all of their time building cool new stuff, not kludging all the other stuff together. And I think when the dust is settled 10 years from now, hopefully people will say, oh, HubSpot saw those dots connect in a different way. They were very patient about it, but it turns out they built a unique CRM product that was, you know, consumer-like on the front end, and more recently enterprise-like on the back end. And we're trying to build a new type of product. So you'll continue to see that happen over the next couple of years. You'll see that at Inbound. And I think we're cranking, by the way. Our product org, I'm really proud of the product org and what they've been doing. Our net promoter scores are way up. We've been investing tons in the product and in customer success, and you're going to continue to see the same thing.
It's quite a bit of chatter and questions around the dad dancing thing, but we'll put those on one side. There's one came up which I quite like, which said, when you look back on the last 5 years and the decisions that you made, do you look back on anything as being pivotal, a turning point for the business?
Yeah, several. We're in an interesting industry. It's very competitive, and all industries are competitive now. And I think you just can't sit still. So, you know, some entrepreneur will come get you from below, or some big company will get you from above, or somebody will get you from the side. CRM industry is super competitive. And so we have always had the attitude of not being afraid to kind of take one step back to hopefully take 3 or 4 steps forward. And we've done that a bunch of times. One step back was, you know, marketing is where we started, and it's a great industry, and it's big enough to build a big company. But the real arbitrage opportunity in the internet isn't just about generating leads using inbound. It's about creating these awesome end-to-end experiences. And so we said, all right, let's shift from being a marketing software company to be a CRM platform. And that's been a long journey. We're still not done with the journey. It's really paying off. We made a big step. We were obsessed, Bob, with the relationship between HubSpot and its prospects. How do we build a product that will really sell? How do we shorten that sales cycle? How do we market and sell really well? At some point, 4 or 5 years ago, we said, actually, the key relationship isn't with our prospects. It's between the company and its customers. How do we delight the heck out of those customers? How do we get our net promoter score way up? And how do we get the word of mouth up? And the aha for us was all our sales and marketing is working really well, and it's great. But at the end of the day, in the final analysis, when people are making that decision to buy HubSpot, they almost rely more on how they use HubSpot in their last company or their friend that used HubSpot is that word of mouth. That has been a big shift. We've also shifted HubSpot along those ends. If you look at our P&L statement, we've moved tons of money from sales and marketing and invested a lot more in the product and R&D. We've become less of a sales-driven company, much more of a product-driven company. We've been less about a company obsessed with that HubSpot prospect relationship, much more about that HubSpot customer relationship. And that took some time and it slowed us down in the short term, but it really paid off. Another huge investment we made was in user research and design. So 3 years ago, we had 3 designers at HubSpot in the product organization. Now we have about 120 designers, user researchers. It's an Apple-like effort in making that user experience really good. Never done with that, but I think it's gotten really, really nice and it's unique relative to the competition. The last one we made was what I call our primary colors initiative. So underneath Hub, so we had a marketing hub product. Inside that marketing hub product, we have email and we have messaging and we have automation and web pages. We have all these different sort of pieces of functionality. And then we built our sales product and our service product, all these products. What we basically did is we pulled all those out and we built a set of what we call primary colors underneath HubSpot. Messaging, automation, reporting, data, 5 or 6 of these primary colors. And when our product people handcraft these applications, they're really just assembling a picture, painting a picture with these primary colors. This approach has really paid off for us. So as we release new functionality and new primary colors, all this stuff just works really well together. And so those are a few of the things where we said, you know, let's just take a step back and go 3 steps forward. A bunch of them have paid off for us. And I give credit, by the way, most of that credit's not mine. It's to our product and engineering organization. They're like, we want to build something awesome. We want to be craftspeople. You know, they describe themselves as craftspeople. And it's going to take some investment and some time. We're going to, and almost all the bets they made have kind of paid off. They've been really good.
So just, there's a question came up with regard to being a CEO of a New York Stock Exchange listed company. What's the best bit about it? What's the worst bit about it? Does it impact you in the day-to-day? Does it get you the best table in the restaurant?
No, definitely not. No one gives a crap about that. I will say, I forget when we went public 5 years ago or something. Everyone said, oh, you don't want to go public. It's hard. You're a CEO. You're going to have to be quarterly driven, very short-term focused, and it's going to be awful and scrutiny and blah, 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 blah. I haven't found that to be the case. And I've found that public investors are more patient than you might imagine. People read about how quarterly driven and short-term driven you have to be. I found that if we paint a picture to our big investors, they listen to the big picture and they make an investment. They'll not always, but they'll generally hold and wait for that return to happen. And when I see big investors, it's like, you know, Fidelity and Capital Group and these giant pools of T. Rowe Price, $1 trillion of capital that they have to be patient almost by definition. They can't move in and out of things. It messes the dynamics up. And so I think they've been more rational and reasonable than I expected. I also think, for better or worse, founders get more latitude as CEOs than hired gun CEOs. I just think it's like, I don't know why, and I'm not sure we deserve it, but I think that a founder will get a little more latitude on stuff, like, well, let's give him a shot. He's got a vision, maybe it'll turn out. And I think they're just a little more confident that the founder can pull it off. I don't know if empirically that would prove out, but for some reason, I think that's the case. And so far, it's been good. I like it. Our big investors, we get to know them a little bit, and they're reasonable folks, and they're thoughtful, and you'll meet with them, they'll challenge you on something, and we get good ideas from them sometimes.
So what creates your stress? What keeps you up at night?
You.
Well, me, not personally, but as in partners and customers? No. I
don't know that that's it. I have a fair amount of stress. We have this sort of mission where we want to help millions of companies grow better. We want to build a company our grandkids will be proud of. And it just still feels like we're pretty early on that path, and there's so much more work to do on that path. And that there's economic headwinds and all these headwinds happening. There's competitive headwinds and like lots of competition. And it's just like, the thing that kind of stinks about being CEO of HubSpot or in this industry is you can't relax. You can't just be like, hey, I'm going to take a couple months off. I'm just going to like chill out and it'll be fine. Stuff changes and moves fast. And so there's not really time to sit back and like take it all in. And it's just constant paranoia and constantly you got to innovate and constant push forward. And if I sit back, I feel like everyone will sit back.
So advice. We're rushing up on the end of our session. That kind of just flew by, but maybe you could just offer a few words of advice to those listening here who are considering their business plans, their marketing plans, their sales plans. Is this somewhere that you would have them focus their activities, focus their actions for best return at this stage?
Yeah.
Sage words I'm looking for.
What was that last part?
Sage words of advice.
Oh, I don't know if they're sage. I'll say one shift that's definitely happening in the world of go-to-market is more and more people we have these ops people inside of HubSpot and sales ops and whatnot, and they're kind of technical marketers, sellers, kind of in between people. And they've been kind of in the back room and kind of tactical. I'm just seeing how much leverage is had with a great sales ops person that's pretty technical and like can really gain leverage for your company. I think just like the role of marketing in 2006, 2007, 2008 was emerging as a new thing, like moving from kind of arts and crafts and trade shows, press releases to, boy, they're kind of hardcore marketers. They're kind of technical and they're content creators. Like the job totally changed and became super high leverage, and they got a seat at the table. That next one, I think, is more around this ops role. People have ops roles in sales. I have a sales ops person. I think everyone should organize and have revenue ops, and then they should have kind of their flywheel around it with marketing and sales and service in one ops team. And they should hire somebody really good to run that ops team that's kind of hardcore and kind of technical and gets the customer and can create great experiences. I think there's a lot of leverage there. And I think ops people over the next 5 years, that career is going to become, kind of like marketing. It's going to change. It's going to be super high leverage. They're going to get paid more. They're going to be in very, very high demand. And that would be advice. Like if you're a CEO or a chief revenue officer, get serious about that group. if you're a marketer or a seller or one of these folks like, doing real work, think about that as a career. I would also centralize it. And I think you'll look 4 or 5 years from now, that revenue ops industry is going to be a huge industry and a really high leverage industry. So that's one kind of meta trend I see beyond the obvious stuff of do everything online.
That's great. We're running up on right on the end of time. I just wondered if there's anything else you have, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I would just say be good to each other. It's a trying time, and you don't know your employee or your partner, your customer, person on the other end of the Zoom, maybe going through friggin' hell on the other side. Be kind to each other and be flexible in this period. There'll be time to be hardcore in a few months, but this is a time to be generous with your employees and flexible with your employees and caring with your employees. And I would just say, give people some love, give them some encouragement. Like if someone's done a good job, like be the cheerleader. We need a little of that. People are probably a little blue and a little down, and they need a little bolt of energy, and they need a little positive encouragement right now to help them get through the day.
Thank you very much. That's been a fantastic session. I've really enjoyed that very much. I'm so pleased that so many of you have stayed with us through that full session.